What's going on, fellas? Welcome back to our stream, a juicy MMA stream. This is a part of our essentially daily stream where we stream every single day during the week, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So I appreciate everybody for joining back. Obviously, I'll give some time for you to join back. But yesterday, we did a little bit of a stream where we did a Dana White Contender Series stream. And I do understand. I mean, obviously, I do see the numbers. They are definitely lower when we do watch-alongs in general, but especially for Contender Series watch-alongs. So if you guys really don't want me to do that going forward, that definitely could be something that we get into. But the reason why I still do these Dana White Contender Series watch-alongs is because I know some of you do enjoy the live streams, and also for me personally, I do like to watch Contender Series. I do like to see new up-and-comers who are, potentially making it to the UFC, and for some of those guys, I like to see, their journey to the UFC, and then also their journey within the UFC. Let me get myself set up here. But yeah, that's kind of a part of the reason why I do it. I guess I just wanted to make that clear. But yeah, since we talked last, not too much news or anything like that has come out, but there has been a couple things that I wanted to update you guys on. And then we can get right to it. So the first thing I want to talk about is this. The UFC put out their official poster for UFC 321. I actually think it looks pretty good. Obviously, Tom Aspinall, Ciryl Gane is the main event. Mackenzie Dern's in the co-main event. Regardless of how you feel about that co-main event, I think it probably should not have happened, or at the very least, it kind of shows the level of women's MMA, especially in the strawweight division, which is kind of unfortunate. But I think the poster itself looks pretty good, and hopefully the card itself turns out to be a good one. I think there's a good chance that we could see a pretty good and pretty fun card for UFC 321, but we'll see what happens. Outside of that, the other news that I wanted to update you guys is just as we were talking about before in the Contender Series, Steven is actually going to be fighting, making a quick turnaround, relatively quick turnaround, fighting in December 13th, UFC Vegas 112. And he put on a pretty good Contender Series performance. There wasn't too much that you could see from it, as it was just a very quick finish, to be completely honest. But it definitely is cool to see some of the Contender Series guys getting their opportunities, and he's the first of the more recent season to get a shot. So he's fighting in December. The other thing I wanted to touch upon is this. Trockley is going up against Mansour Abdul Malik. So Mansour is definitely a guy that I personally think is pretty good. And they're going to be fighting against Trockley, who I think is absolutely horrible. But they're giving Mansour an opportunity here to get a finish. And they're going to be fighting on UFC 323 in December. So that's all the news that came out since we talked last. Not too much, but I just wanted to update you on a couple of things. What's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Is there news on Paddy Ilia? Not necessarily news on Paddy versus Ilia. The reason why I titled that the way I did was because there's just a lot of reports lately of Topuria potentially fighting soon. And it seems like Arman Tsarukyan's not going to be fighting Ilia Topuria. He's going to be fighting against what the fuck's his face? Dan Hooker. Arman Tsarukyan versus Dan Hooker. There's been a lot of rumors about that potentially coming up for UFC Qatar. So because of that, it's got to be one of two options, either Gaethje or Paddy. And to be honest, in terms of selling the fight, I think Paddy makes more sense. So that's why I titled it. There's no official news or anything like that on that specific fight, but that's kind of what I was just talking about with that title. And in terms of the other part of the title, Dominick Reyes title shot incoming. I mean, Dominick Reyes, we talked about this a lot in the stream. Of course, we all are, most of us at least, are rooting for him. I just came out with a video today actually talking about why I think Dominick Reyes is going to win the fight, because I do think so, regardless of bias. But if Dominick Reyes does beat Carlos Ulberg, not this weekend, but next weekend at UFC Perth, he is going to get a title shot in his next fight. Very, very likely he gets a title shot in his next fight. So I know it's pretty crazy considering where he was not too long ago, just getting knocked out 3 straight times, or I think it was 3 straight times after losing to John Jones. But to see what he's been able to do at this point, getting 3 finishes in a row and potentially getting another one versus Carlos Ulberg, which is, in my opinion, a #1 contender fight. He's very close to getting a title shot. He's 2 fights away from being a champion, and pretty incredible considering where he was not too long ago. But yeah, in terms of news, honestly, that's really it. There isn't too much else that came out recently. I have been a little critical, I guess, about the UFC lately, just because there's like no news coming out. I know we do have some good cards that have already been announced. And even for the rest of this month, we have one more card, no card this weekend, but we have one more card coming up for UFC Perth, which I think the main event is good. The rest of the card is fine. But yeah, there's definitely some fights that we want to see get made. There's definitely some cards we want to hear about for December, for the pay-per-view, for some of the fight nights, because I do think there's going to be at least one fight night in an arena in December, probably going to be in Orlando. That's usually what they do for those December cards. And yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of questions. Who's Justin Gaethje going to fight next? Who Ilia Topuria is going to fight next? Who Paddy Pimblett's going to fight next? It seems like Arman's going to fight Max Holloway, but I don't think that's. Or sorry, it seems like Arman's going to fight Dan Hooker, I should say, but that's not. It's not official yet. So I would be interested to see who he fights. Definitely at the lightweight division, there's a lot of moving parts. Dominick Reyes is one of the biggest UFC what ifs. I listen around and around. Yeah, that definitely is true. But I mean, he is on a win streak at this point. So who knows? I mean, as I said, he's 2 fights away from being a champion. So I agree with you. He definitely is a big what if he loses here to Carlos Ulberg and he never gets the title shot. But if he beats Carlos Ulberg, which I think he will, I think he has a good chance to do so. And I honestly, if I had to predict, I think he will. Then I guess it wouldn't really be a what if. But I see what you're saying. And yes, if he does lose to Carlos Ulberg, he could be categorized as that, as he definitely is a really good fighter for sure. His countering ability is really effective. His striking ability is really effective. He was kind of just let down by one, his chin, but two, also his morale after losing that John Jones fight. When obviously most people thought he probably should have won that one. So, but we'll see. It'll be determined on how he looks against Carlos Ulberg, I think. But yeah, we could be in a world where we see Dominick Reyes versus Alex Pereira or Dominick Reyes versus Magomed Ankalaev, which is kind of crazy to think about, but it's possible. It definitely is possible. But as I was saying, I guess in terms of the news, it is unfortunate that there's not too much news coming out about potential cards in December. But the one thing that we do have is we do know for the October cards, all 4 of the cards are really good. So that'll be fun. It does suck that we don't have the main event that was supposed to happen for RDR versus Fluffy. It sucks that kind of fell through, but at least RDR staying in the card and he's fighting Brandon Allen, and the rest of the card is honestly pretty fun as well, or pretty decent. What are your thoughts on John Jones desperately wanting to be on the White House card? Does he deserve that? Yeah, he does deserve it, if we're being honest. I mean, he is a legend for sure, regardless of how he is personally. He is a legend. He definitely does deserve that. I know Dana was kind of saying that he doesn't really trust John Jones because of pulling out or being on PDs or whatever, which I completely understand that. But I think we'll get more clarity on that as time progresses. I mean, Dana has said that he's probably going to make decisions for that White House card probably starting in February. And I don't know when us UFC fans are going to hear about it, but probably around February time, he's going to make decisions. And obviously a lot could change between now and then. But do I think he's going to be on the card? I think there's a decent chance that he's on the card. But does he deserve it? Yeah, I think he deserves it as well, to be honest. I'm not thrilled about some of the things he did recently, like PEDs and also avoiding and ducking Tom Aspinall. But I think he does deserve it overall. But if I had to say at this point, I think Conor McGregor is gonna headline that card for the White House card. It kind of would be unfortunate if it's a Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler fight. More importantly, because Michael Chandler would be on the main event of such a big card, and I don't think he deserves it. But I think there's a good chance that could happen. I know Dana has been talking about it a lot lately, that Conor is super in touch with Dana about fighting on the card, that he's working out every day, training every day. So it kind of feels like he may be on the card. But as I said, a lot could change between now and then. For up to me, I would like to see a higher level fight to be the main event, but I could definitely see it being Conor. And maybe John will be the co-main event, as silly as that may sound, but it's possible. Rick, what's going on, brother? Welcome back to the stream. It's been some time. How much BTC you got now, homie? A little over one. But yeah, what about you? How much do you got? But yeah. We'll see what happens for that White House card. There is definitely a lot that could happen in between now and then. Does Ilia versus Crawford super fight excite you? I'll say that. Well, honestly, I'll say no. It doesn't excite me. Really, what I want to see for Topuria at this point is just focus on the UFC, focus on fighting in MMA. I think there's a lot of fights that are left for him to fight that could further build his star power and could further build his legacy. Like fighting at least one more time at 155 against Armin, which would really be my preference. Him versus Armin at 155, and if he beats Armin, which I think he will, then move up to 170, and then potentially go for that third belt. Really, that's what I would personally like to see for Ilia, to focus on the UFC at this point. But if in the middle of his career, if he starts focusing on potentially boxing or whatever, and then he comes back to the UFC or comes back to MMA after, it kind of messes up your career because you're training, you're kind of focusing on two different sports in the middle of your MMA career, kind of what we saw with Conor McGregor. Not saying the same thing would happen for Topuria, but I would prefer him to fight in MMA, and then when he's done with MMA, when he retires, then he can box if he so chooses to do so. So that's what I would like to personally see. And honestly, I think that is a possibility, considering I don't think Topuria is going to fight that long in MMA in general. So does it excite me? No, I mean, if it happened, would I watch it? Of course. But does it excite me? No, because I prefer to see him just fight in MMA. If he fought in MMA and he became a 3 division champ or did whatever he wanted to do and he decided to retire and then go into boxing, then sure. Sure. But that would be some time, and Crawford's already a little bit older at this point. Well, that's a lot. I have about 0.03, bro. What are your plans for until retirement? Yeah, I'm not moving it for a long time. Probably until retirement, yeah. But yeah. John, what's going on, brother? Welcome back to the stream. Rick Allen, yep, Rick Allen's back. Let's go. But yeah, we'll see what Topuria decides to do. I've said this multiple times, and I really do think this. I really feel like 155 is all these guys, all these potential contenders are just literally waiting to see what Ilia Topuria does. Whenever Topuria makes his decision on who he's going to fight next, I think we're going to see a lot of guys at 155 start to have their fights announced. Because as I said, Armin Tsarukyan, Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje, Dan Hooker, Paddy Pimblett, as well as maybe you can even mention some other guys. All those guys don't have fights booked, that don't have that many fights booked right now, or don't have any fights booked right now. So I think they're all kind of just waiting to see if they're able to get a title shot versus Topuria. But once Topuria figures out who he wants to fight, or the UFC just figures out who's going to fight Topuria, I think we're going to start to see a lot more movement. Really just what I do personally is I just could do consistent buys. I mean, I'm not rich or anything like that. I didn't, buy it all at one time. It's been over the course of years. Just buy a little bit, set reoccurring buys, and yeah, that's what I did personally. 2 title defenses of the magic number for Topuria. Yeah, I guess I would like to see that. I'm assuming you're talking about at 155. I guess I would like to see that, but I really feel like for Topuria, what he's thinking is he wants to fight one more time, and then he wants to fight Islam Makhachev at 170, or JDM if JDM beats Islam at 170. Yeah, in an ideal world, I do agree with you. I would like to see 2 title defenses for Topuria. Honestly, even at 145, I wish he had one more title defense. If it was against Volkanovski, then maybe not. But if it was against somebody else, I would like to see him have gotten one more title defense at that weight class. But yeah, obviously he didn't want to do that. He wanted to move up, and I kind of feel like a very similar thing is going to happen here for Topuria, for 155, I should say. I think he's going to fight one guy. If it's Armin, if it's Paddy, if it's Gaethje, we'll see. But I think he's probably going to move up after that, especially if Islam beats JDM. If JDM beats Islam, I think there's a chance, slight chance, but there's a chance that Islam moves back down to 155, and then we see Topuria fight Islam at 155. Not super likely, but there's a chance that could happen. That was smart, bro. Thanks, bro. Appreciate it. But yeah, that's just what I do. Do all your friends allow to be too? Not all my friends, no. There's a couple who have a decent amount. Some have way more than I do. But yeah, it just depends. Not all my friends. Yeah. But we'll see. Also, kind of interested to see. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be on the December card, but I'm kind of interested to see when Pantoja fights against Van. I know that's obviously the next fight that's going to happen at flyweight. But the timing of it, obviously, we don't have anything announced yet. But most likely, it's going to be in December. If I had to guess at this point, I think the December card is going to look very similar to this, being Volkanovski versus Lerone Murphy is going to be the main event, and then the co-main event is going to be Joshua Van versus what's it called? Joshua Van versus Pantoja. But we'll see. We'll see. What's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Welcome. But yeah, I think that's probably what the card's going to look like. I am hopeful that we see Topuria fight whoever before the end of the year, but I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if he's on it. In my opinion, if I had to say, I'd probably say Volk versus Lerone. Main event, co-main event would be Pantoja Van for the December card. And then for the January card, maybe we could see Topuria fight against whoever. But yeah. Bro, do you invest in other shit like S&P? Yeah, I do invest in S&P. Reoccurring buys. That's what I do for S&P and all that and whatnot. Which I would do COVID. Yeah, everybody does. I wish I bought BTC when it was less than $1. That would have been nice. But what can you do at this point? You know, if it's what you believe in, you could just stick with reoccurring buys. A Mexican for calling them white. I mean, that's damn. Damn. All right. Unbelievable. But getting back to MMA, yeah, I think that's probably what we're going to see in the near future, and I definitely am interested to see. There definitely is a lot of fights they could put together. By the way, what do you think about who do you think Khamzat's next fight's going to be? It's got to be Imavov at this point, right? It's got to be. I know a lot of people were saying or were speculating that the winner of Fluffy and RDR could get the next title shot versus Khamzat, but I think at this point it's got to be Imavov. But I guess we'll see. Also, on the subject, I want to say big respect to RDR for staying on the card and taking on Brendan Allen. And I'll tell you why. Originally, when he was supposed to fight Fluffy, although I didn't think he was going to get the next title shot, assuming he won that fight, I thought his next fight would be for the title in that sort of a fight. It was kind of a number one contender fight between him and Fluffy. I still think Imavov would have got the shot before him, but still his next fight, as I said, would have been for the title. But now that he's moving down and essentially fighting Brendan Allen, who's number 11 in the rankings, I think he's probably, even if he beats Brendan Allen, which I think RDR will, even if he beats him and even if he finishes him, I think he's probably going to need to fight one more time before he gets a title shot. So big respect to RDR for accepting that sort of fight. A lot of guys would not do that. A lot of guys would just pull out of the card and wait to fight Fluffy at a later date. But for RDR, he stayed on the card. He stayed very active, honestly, ever since he made it to the UFC. So big respect to him on that front. And we'll see. I mean, it's possible the UFC can be like, listen, you did us a favor here. We're going to give you a title shot anyway in your next fight. But I think it's way more likely that he's going to need to fight one more guy after he beats Brendan Allen, assuming he does. But as I said, I think he will. Bro, you must have unlimited money. No, I don't have unlimited. I just work. I make money, every so often. That's how I get it. Is Paddy Topuria happening or something? No, it's not like official or anything like that. But the reason why I say that is it's probably going to be either Paddy or Gaethje because there's been a lot of rumors of Armin fighting Dan Hooker. So I'm just assuming it's going to be Paddy or Gaethje. The reason I put Paddy in the title is because what's it called? Is because I just feel like it may make more sense for the UFC from the UFC's perspective, just because that probably sells more. But nothing official or anything like that. Imavov 100%. Yeah, I agree with that. He's got to get the title shot at this point. And I'm not even the biggest Imavov fan, but he's got to get the title shot at this point. I mean, let's be honest. I think he loses. He probably gets taken down and submitted in the first 2 rounds, but he deserves it. Did Fluffy get injured or something? Yeah, he got injured a couple days ago. He got injured. So That was unfortunate. But yeah, now it's going to be Fluffy versus Brennan Allen. Who's next for Marab after Sanhagen? So you're assuming that Marab's going to win, which I agree with you. I think he's going to win as well. So next after him it's got to be Peter Yan. It's Peter Yan. It's got to be Peter Yan. I know Marab absolutely dominated Peter Yan, if we're being honest. It was a clear 50-45. But still, I think Peter Yan deserves a shot again against Marab. He's had a couple wins under his belt ever since losing, or maybe more than a couple wins under his belt. I don't remember. But he's definitely had some wins under his belt ever since that fight. And most just recently he won. So I do think it's going to be Peter Yan next for the title. I don't think anybody else is like obviously deserves it. Umar, I know Umar's fighting against Mario Batista, and if Umar wins, can you make the argument he should fight Marab again? I don't know. If in my personal opinion, I would like to see Umar fight at least one more time, even if he beats Batista before he gets a shot, just because he just lost not too long ago to Marab. And yes, I get it. So did Yan. Not too long ago, he lost to Marab. But at least for Yan, he fought a couple of times, and that fight was a little bit of time ago, I guess I should say. Who do you think the Democrats are going to run in 2028? Gavin Newsom. I don't love to get into politics, but I'll answer it for you. Probably. Well, honestly, I have no idea, to be honest. But yeah, maybe Gavin Newsom. I guess I'll agree with that. Pritzker, maybe. I'm not too big of a fan of him, but maybe they decide to run him. I don't know, but I'm not on that side. That's all I'll say on politics. Kid Low, what's going on, brother? Welcome back to the stream. Hopefully that kid, myself, can get a win versus Thickness in his hometown. Look like a Southern Contender Series. Yep. I agree, actually. We'll see how he does, and it's coming up pretty soon next weekend. UFC Perth. Against Cody Thickness, yeah. Cody Thickness is like, he didn't look amazing in his debut either. He looked okay, or decent, I should say. But yeah, I agree that he looked pretty good on the Contender. So we'll see. They should try to rebook Fluffy RDR if he gets past Allen, which I believe he will. Yeah, maybe you could do that. Honestly, maybe you just do that. As I said, I do think that RDR is probably going to need to fight again after he beats Brendan Allen. I think he will beat Brendan Allen. Early on, it could look kind of close, I guess, but as the fight progresses, Brendan Allen has had a lot of gas tank issues, and also I just think RDR is probably better. So as the fight progresses, I think RDR is going to start to pull away, and he's going to win the fight. So I agree with you. He's probably going to win. And after, yeah, I guess you could do him versus RDR. Him versus Fluffy afterwards. I don't mind that matchmaking, to be honest. Card has a lot of potential for bangers, especially since the crowd will be livid, but hopefully. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, listen, it's not the same, I guess. Maybe the Paris card looked a little bit better on paper, but it was kind of a similar thing for the Paris card where, yes, the main and co-main event were really good, but the rest of the card didn't have like a ton of like high name value on the card. But the card was still exciting, even going into it, because the crowd was always Paris crowds are always amazing, and also there was potential for some bangers to be on that card, which it turned out there was. And I kind of feel a similar way to this card, the UFC Perth card. The main event is good for sure, but besides that, there's not a lot of name value on the card, but they are in Perth, and Perth is always exciting. The crowd is always amazing there, and there's also some fights in this card that I think could be really fun. For whatever reason, one criticism I'll have for the card, I don't know how Junior Tafa is in the co-main event. I don't even know how he's still in the UFC. I'm coming out with a video next Friday talking about this. I know I talk about Junior Tafa a lot, but I just think he's absolutely horrific. He's so bad. He's not even close to being UFC level. So it's kind of weird to me that he's still in the UFC, for one, but also for two, he's a co-main event. I don't get it, but whatever. But outside of Junior Tafa, I do think there are some fights on this card that could be pretty fun, regardless of the actual name value of it. So is it going to be as good as UFC Paris? 90% no, but I think the card has a real chance to be good, though. Oban Elliott is sink or swim time. Not a big believer in Metcalf, so hopefully he wins. Yeah, I agree with that. I actually don't think he's all that great either. McAuliffe, whatever. But I agree with you on your sentiment for Oban, and yeah, that is coming up. Is that okay? Never mind. I just answered my own question. I was gonna say, is that card earlier than normal, but it's actually not. Main card time will start at 10 p.m. Eastern time, and prelims start at 7. Eastern. But yeah, definitely some potential bangers on the card. Even Justin Tafa, he's not an amazing fighter for sure. He's definitely not, but he's usually in fun fights. So his fight versus Sutherland could be potentially good. And there's definitely some other examples of that as well on the card. So I'm excited for the card. Obviously, as I touched upon a lot, September is not really an amazing month for MMA. There's some decent fight nights for sure, but really October is where the big fights are at. 2 pay-per-views, even the fight nights are good. Even due to the fact that Fluffy had to pull out, I still think that card is kind of fun. And the 2 pay-per-views look pretty good as well. Movsar deserves a title shot against Volkanovski. I don't think it's going to happen. I'll tell you why. Because Volkanovski is most likely going to be fighting Lerone Murphy. Or you're saying Movsar deserves a shot over Lerone Murphy. I don't think the UFC is going to do that. I mean, the UFC has not done any favors at all for Movsar in the past, and especially after he pulled out of his fight. It was supposed to be against Pico, especially after he pulled out of that fight. I don't think the UFC is going to reward him with a title shot. But if you're saying, does Movsar deserve a title shot after Lerone Murphy fights Volkanovski, I just don't think that's going to happen. Just because I said this multiple times. Volk has talked about this multiple times. But I think Volkanovski, win or loss in his fight, after his fight against Lerone Murphy, I think he's going to retire. If he loses, he's definitely going to retire. If he wins, I think there's a good chance he retires as well, to be honest. He's been talking about it a little bit, potentially retiring, and I don't think we're going to see much more of Volkanovski, to be honest. So because of that reason, I don't think we're going to see Movsar versus Volkanovski. But we'll see. Maybe Volk could stay a little bit longer. Ibo versus Tava should fight depending on what version of Ibo. Yeah, if it's just, he's a marauder. If I were anything like really great, yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I mean, if Ibo fights like how he probably should out there, he should run through Tafa. Tafa is technically known to be a kickboxer, but he has like essentially no power, and he doesn't have much technique either on the feet. So Ibo literally should just press forward here, land big shots, and knock him out quickly. That's what should happen. But based on Ibo's last performance being so bad, and even before that, I was never a believer in Ibo. I don't think Ibo's good at all, if I'm gonna be honest. But he does have good power. He should just walk forward and knock out Tafa. But we'll see. We'll see what kind of version of Ibo we get out there in this one. I guess possibly in his last fight when he was super passive, I guess I'll say. Maybe he was kind of scared of the power coming back his way. And also before that, he just got finished. So maybe that was in the back of his mind. But I don't think those concerns should really be there at all for Junior Tough out of all people. He sucks and he has no power. I know I'm criticizing Junior Tough a lot, but he's not good. Who will fight for the vacant featherweight title then? I think a fight that would make sense. I mean, of course, there is a lot of moving parts at that point, but I think a fight that could make sense is have, since Diego Lopez won against Jean Silva, it could be Movsar versus Jean Silva, fight for the vacant belt. Maybe you can do that, or well, it depends on when this fight's going to get announced between Volkanovski and between Lerone Murphy, and also it's going to depend on when Volkanovski actually announces his retirement. Let's say Volkanovski versus Lerone fight in December, and Volkanovski immediately announces his retirement. I think there's a chance we could see Diego Lopez versus Movsar Evloev for the vacant belt. But if the fight gets announced later, like January, February, or something like that, or if Volkanovski announces his retirement at a later point, I think we could see Diego Lopez fight Yair Rodriguez and Movsar face somebody else. And then the winner of those 2 fights could fight for the vacant belt. So obviously, who knows? I mean, there is a lot of time between now and whenever that ends up happening. I'm assuming Volk is going to fight Lerone, and I'm assuming he's going to fight him in December, but no guarantee or anything like that of that happening. Mindset is huge. You try to bully Kutilaba, and he got bullied, so he played it safe. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that fight against Kutilaba, definitely changed the mindset of Ibo. And in previous fights, he did not fight nearly as cautious as he did in his last one. But obviously, he was an overcorrection from what he should be doing. But in my opinion, as I said multiple times, I think in this fight against Tafa, he should fight like he doesn't respect his opponent, and he should fight like he's trying to bully his opponent here. I just really don't think Junior Tafa has much for him, or really anybody else for that matter. But we'll see how he looks. I'm kind of hoping he does that just so we can get somewhat of a fun fight potentially in the co-main event. I'm not a huge fan of that fight in general being the co-main event, but since it is there, I would like to see Ibo Islam, go for it at the very least. But we'll see how that fight turns out. Yeah, in a theoretical world, it could be fun if Ibo just presses forward, lands big shots, and knocks out or TKOs Junior Tafa. It could be fun. And if that does happen, I think there's a chance that some MMA fans may jump right back on the bandwagon that is Ibo Islam. But I'm telling you, before the fight happens, after the fight happens, Ibo Islam is not good. I really don't think he's good at all. So even if he finishes Junior Tafa and he looks good in the fight, it's not going to change my personal opinion on how good I think or not good I think he is. But we shall see how he looks. We shall see. By the way, I kind of mentioned it earlier for Mansour is fighting Trockley. Trockley is also another guy I don't think he's good at all. I think he's even worse than Ibo Islam. So the UFC is definitely giving Mansour an opportunity here to find a finish and start to build his career. It's something that we have been seeing a little bit more lately with Mansour as well as Gauthier. The UFC is doing a kind of a good job, to be honest, at building these raw talents a little bit slower. Not saying that these guys are necessarily raw, but they're definitely newer to MMA. So the UFC is doing a good job at kind of just giving them easier matchups to start off their career, to find big finishes, to grow the hype around their name and excitement around their name, and also to build their confidence as well, and just have more time in MMA to make improvements to their game. So yeah, I don't think Trockley has much of a chance at all against Mansour, but the UFC is obviously just trying to push Mansour or just try to grow his name, turn him into a potential star, which I like. It was a big coincidence all under yeah. I actually made a video about this, which will be coming out next week, talking about the Fighting Nerds specifically. I know a lot of people after all the Fighting Nerds, especially Jean Silva lost, they're saying, these guys are frauds. They were never that good, whatever. In my opinion, I still think the Fighting Nerds are good. I still think all of them have a chance to be pretty good. Are they all going to be champions? Obviously not. I have a rankings on who I think is better. I think Jean Silva is still number one. As unpopular as this opinion may seem at this point, I don't really care, to be honest. I think Jean Silva is going to be a champion by the end of 2026. I know he lost to Diego Lopez, but I really still feel like that. So I think he's number one. Number two, I would have Caio Bahayo. Number three, Carlos Prates. Number four, Mauricio Rufy. But for all the guys, I think they're obviously have enough talent to be ranked fighters, even Rufy. And I think some of them have a chance to be top five guys as Jean Silva, I definitely believe could get there. And Caio Bahayo, I believe, was a top five guy or is close to it. Obviously, he fought a top five guy. And for Carlos Prates, I don't think he's top five right now, but he is fighting Leon Edwards. And if he beats Leon Edwards, he could be one shot away from a title shot. So I think the Fighting Nerds are good. I still think they're pretty good. Are they as good as people thought initially? Maybe not. But I still think they're pretty good. Rumor has it that Derek Lewis is a backup fighter for Tom Aspinall's Real Gone. Okay, that would be interesting. Honestly, that would be hilarious. Honestly, that's kind of, I'm not saying you're wrong, but it kind of would be against everything that Derek Lewis has said in the past. I don't think he really wants to, he doesn't like to fight 5-rounders in general, and for the belt, obviously he'll do it, but he doesn't like to fight 5-rounders in general. And also, I don't think he would cut weight just to be a backup fighter based on what I know about Derek Lewis, but of course it is possible. You might be right on that. I was never that high in the Fighting Nerds. We'll see. We'll see how they do going forward. I'm obviously Carlos Prates already bounced back. If Leon Edwards beat Carlos, is over. Yeah, if Leon Edwards beats it's over for Carlos or for the Fighting Nerds. For the Fighting Nerds, I definitely don't think so. For Carlos, if he loses to Leon, yeah, it probably would mean he's not on the elite level, which is possible. But I think for the other Fighting Nerds, it'd still be pretty good. Have I already asked you, Jean Silva, Garcia? I think you asked me. Yeah, I personally lean Jean Silva, but I am obviously very high on him. So I would favor Jean Silva over most guys, to be honest. But Steve Garcia is pretty good. Honestly, I think the UFC would be doing him a disservice to give him Jean Silva at this point. Steve is already on a win streak. He's number 12 in the rankings. I would like to see the UFC probably give him somebody else to help build himself in the rankings a little bit more before he gets a Jean Silva fight, if he ever does. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they decide to do. Either way, they're all pretty dynamic and have something different. To them, yeah, honestly, I never understood. Okay, on one hand, I understand it, and the other hand, I don't. I don't really understand that the hate towards the fighting nerds just because they're really exciting fighters. Honestly, all of them. I guess you can say Kaya Bahalio is not as exciting as the other guys, which is true, but there's still certain excitement to his game. But on the other hand, I do understand it because they were super confident in themselves and they were winning. I mean, when guys, a team, a specific fighter, are just winning a ton, kind of tends to bring along some haters. So I get it, and I also don't get it. But yeah, they all, as you said, by the way, welcome to the stream. But as you said, they all bring a different, dynamic to them, the way they fight and whatever. And they're also all really powerful and very physical as well. Honestly, all of them are. Jean Silva, Rufi, as well as Kyle Bahalio to an extent, and definitely Carlos Prates. If he doesn't care for the belt, then what the hell is he fighting for? I agree with you. But he has said that in the past. Like, he doesn't really care to fight 5-rounders and whatever. As I said, if he has an opportunity to fight for the belt, I'm sure he'll take it. But I'm just saying what he said in the past. But I agree with you overall. Over for the fighting nerds. Yeah, I don't agree with that, but we'll see. I'm gonna laugh if Leon beats Edwards. Leon beats Carlos Prates. You mean? It's gonna be funny if Tom loses to Gon. That would be that one. I will agree with you. If Tom loses to Gon, which I don't think is gonna happen, but theoretically, if that happened, that would be pretty funny. And to be honest, it kind of makes the heavyweight division a little bit more interesting because there's certain guys that I think could beat Ciryl Gane. But for Tom Aspinall, I don't really think there's many. So it would make it more interesting, but it would be funny. I don't understand the hate against the fighting nerds. We need flashy fighters in the UFC. I completely agree. And also, I think they're pretty good. I guess I'm a minority at this point. I know there's a lot of hate towards the fighting nerds, but I think they're fun, and I actually think they're pretty good. The worst out of them being Mauricio Ruffi, but even for him, I think he's solid as well. I know John Jones is going to laugh if Tom loses. Yeah, I agree. He definitely will. But if Ciryl Gane beat, but honestly, I agree with you on one hand, but on the other hand, it would make John Jones look so bad because if Ciryl Gane goes in there and beats Tom Aspinall, then it would kind of make John Jones look bad because he was avoiding somebody who wasn't that good. I guess you can make the argument that he wasn't that good. Which I don't think would be accurate, but you can make the argument of that. So I almost feel like if Gane beats Tom, it almost makes John Jones look even worse, to be honest. Has Leon ever fought? Well, on one hand it does, on the other hand it makes John look good because he beat Gane, but whatever. Has Leon ever fought anyone dangerous as Carlos on the feet? No, I don't think, unless I'm forgetting about somebody, but I don't think so. Carlos Prates is not like the most well-rounded fighter in the world. He obviously he isn't, but one thing that he does have is he does have good striking, and for two, most importantly, he's very, very dangerous. He has an insane amount of power. So to answer that question, I don't think so. I mean, you could make the argument that Kamaru Usman was very dangerous, which he was on the feet, but I wouldn't even say he's as dangerous as Carlos Prates. So I would probably say no to that. And as I said, I do think Carlos Prates is going to get the win. I think stylistically, it's probably a pretty good fight for him, as he's usually, when he has the most success, when he finds his knockouts, he's on the front foot, has his opponent against the cage. And when Leon fights, he's usually always backing up. There's obviously on occasion where he's going forward, but usually he's backing up. And when he's backing up, it plays into the range or plays into the stylistic fight that Carlos Prates would like to fight at. Also, Leon fights at a slower pace, which also favors Carlos Prates. And the one factor that I think Leon could potentially go to is the grappling against Carlos Prates, which is not even a guarantee, but that's probably a path that would, kind of benefit Leon. But if he's on the back foot, he's not going to be able to effectively shoot in for takedowns and effectively find takedowns. So I just think stylistically it's a good fight for Carlos. I know a group guy who's live streams and complain about the UFC being boring and yeah, it's pretty funny. That's actually pretty funny. I agree with you. The fighting nerds definitely do make the sport more fun. just their fights individually being fun. All of them are exciting fighters, but also as a group, kind of just adding a new aspect and adding a new layer to MMA. I agree with you. I'm a fan of them. I know a lot of people aren't, but I am. It would be even more funny if Gon beats Tom than John Jones fight Gon again. That becomes it. Yeah, I think he probably would. Honestly, if Gon beats Tom, that would be surprising to me. But if that happens and they do Gon versus John Jones for the White House card and John beats Gon, like I would not be surprised. I think John beats Gon. He probably would beat him again, even if they fought. It's just the grappling is such a disadvantage for Gon. And yeah, he'll make some improvements, I guess. But the wrestling of John Jones is different from the wrestling of Tom Aspinall, in my opinion, although Tom is a good wrestler. That's why I think John made the claim a little while ago that people were saying that Tom Aspinall has better grappling or better wrestling than John Jones or DC or both, which is absolutely absurd. Although I do think he is a good wrestler. Also, there was recently a clip that came out about Tom that he got taken down by a not so amazing grappler, which is not an amazing thing to say, but Tom is a good wrestler, though. I don't think it makes John Jones look bad because he would have beaten Tom as well. Yeah, I guess you could make the art like it makes him look good and bad. It makes him look good because that at that point Gon would beat Tom and John literally ran through Surreal Gon. So it would make him look good in that respect. But in the other respect, like I think it makes him look bad because if Gon beats Tom, then it kind of makes him look bad because he was kind of holding out and ducking a guy in Tom Aspinall that may have not nearly been as good as we originally thought. So I kind of think it makes him look good in one hand and look bad on the other hand. If Gon did beat Tom, I think also be a much better chance of beating Jones, and arguably would beat Jones if he beat Tom. I see your argument. I guess what you're kind of trying to say is if Gon beat Tom, that means he would stop his takedowns and keep the fight on the feet and have success there. That's how the only way I would see him being able to beat Tom. And if that does happen, I guess he would have a better chance of beating John Jones. But as I said, if that does happen, I think, yes, it does say that Surreal Gon did make significant improvements to his takedown defense. But also on the other hand, I think that would say that Tom Aspinall is not as good of a wrestler as we initially thought. So if that did happen, that theoretical scenario did happen, and John Jones did come back and fought Gon, yeah, I'm sure Gon would have a better chance of beating John in the rematch. But still, like there still would be a pretty big discrepancy in terms of the wrestling, in my opinion, at least. But as I said, I think Tom Aspinall is going to win. Leon has everything to be a dominant champ except art. Completely agree. I've talked about this a lot on stream. I completely agree. Leon is super, super talented. Obviously on the feet, he's very talented. He's very technical and tactical. Even on the ground, he's done a good job in making significant improvements. He has good jiu-jitsu. His wrestling has even improved. He's taken down really good wrestlers. He's reversed positions against really good wrestlers. When you look at the Colby, Kamara, or even Bilal Muhammad fight, he had success on the ground against all three of those guys on the ground. So clearly he is very talented everywhere the fight goes. The thing about him is, as you said, and I completely agree with, he has no heart. If things are going his way, yeah, he'll dominate his opponents. He also doesn't have that killer instinct, which is something I don't love. But he'll dominate his opponents tactically, I guess I'll say. It's not like he's going to put a ton of damage on his opponents, but he will dominate his opponents tactically, like what he was able to do to Colby Covington. But the problem is if he loses any round or any sort of minutes in a specific round, he'll lose all confidence. And that's why I kind of go back to this. When he head kicked Kamaru Usman, I almost feel like that was kind of a miracle. And yes, it would be a miracle for anybody, honestly, to land that sort of a shot after losing essentially 5 rounds, or not 5 rounds, 3 rounds prior. Leon won the first round, lost the next 3 rounds pretty dominantly. But especially when you talk about Leon Edwards, this guy loses confidence very quickly. So the fact that he was able to find that head kick is kind of a miracle, in my opinion. But I do agree with you. Leon is very talented. Obviously, he was already a champion, but I think he still could be a champion. I think he could have beat Bilal Muhammad if he didn't, quit on himself, I guess. But yeah, it's unfortunate. The guys I'm talking about is also I've also been talking about is one of channel. Yeah, that's a crazy take. Listen, some guys, I'm not criticizing him. I don't really know much about him, but just MMA fans in general, YouTube channels in general, and MMA fans on Twitter in general, a lot of times they like just to say things that will get them clicks. I'm not saying this guy's doing that. As I said, I don't know anything about him, but a lot of times people will say outrageous things that help them get clicks. And I think a big reason for why Lucas Tracy blew up the way he did was because maybe he wasn't even doing it on purpose, but he said a lot of outrageous things, like a lot of dumb things, if we're going to be honest. And because of that, it kind of, uh, grew his fan base. And at this point, maybe his takes are better. I don't really watch Lucas Tracy, so I don't know. But maybe his takes at this point are better. But that's kind of what blew him up. So I'm not saying this guy does that specifically, but it is possible, because saying Volkanovski and Holloway are overrated is absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane take, to be honest. Holloway has been a champion forever. And at this point, I mean, not only is he still good, I think he's arguably the best he's ever looked. And for Volkanovski, like, he beat some really good names. He was very dominant. And he beat Holloway 3 times. I don't think people realize like how impressive that is. If you want to say Holloway won one of those fights, okay, fine. But still, even beating him 2 times, and the third time they fought, Volkanovski literally dominated Holloway like so badly that people couldn't even talk. I remember watching that fight live. I thought Volkanovski would win the fight going into the fight. But I liked Holloway, but I didn't like him as much as some of my other friends that I was watching with that were like all in on Max Holloway at that point. And I just remember like everybody was in silence because there was no doubting that Volkanovski just completely dominated Max Holloway in that fight. And I like Max, as I said, but there's just no doubt about that. So I think both those guys are amazing fighters. And saying that either one of them are overrated is kind of ridiculous, in my opinion. Just like it would be funny if Dariush beat Holloway, beat him by KO. If Dariush knocked out Max Holloway, that would be like the most ridiculous thing of all time, to be honest. But yeah, I don't think that will happen, to say the least, but that'd be kind of funny. I noticed Colby hasn't fought none this year. Last fight was in December against Buckley. Yeah, I think there's a chance. I mean, I know Colby was talking about fighting soon. He called out somebody. I don't remember who he called out. He called out somebody, but I don't know. For all intents and purposes, Colby Covington is retired. I like Colby Covington, or liked him at a certain point, and maybe still do to an extent, but I don't think Colby Covington is definitely not going to compete for a title ever again. But even competing against guys that are in the top 15, like, I don't think Colby's there anymore. At one point, yeah, he had a really good skill set. His cardio was amazing. His gas tank was amazing. His wrestling was really good. His striking, although it wasn't amazing, was serviceable. But at this point, his physicality, although he was never super physical, but especially at this point, his physicality is completely gone. If you look at his fight versus Joaquin Buckley, he was not able to find a takedown. I think he found one, but for the most part, he shot in a bunch of times, and it was just impossible. He got stonewalled a bunch of times when shooting in for takedowns. But when you look at Buckley's fight against Kamaru Usman, Usman was easily able to take down Buckley 4 separate times. One time, he shot in once in each of the first 4 rounds, and he got a takedown. So I think Colby's career is all but finished. Is he going to fight again? Maybe he will, but I don't think he's going to win against basically anybody he fights. I just think he's all but done at this point. So Colby's career is a little bit unfortunate, in my opinion, because he was so inactive, only fighting essentially once a year in his prime. But whatever. I don't know. I think his career is all but done. Wasn't Holloway's champion for 2 years, 2017, 2019? Yeah, I believe so. He was champion for a little while for sure. I don't remember exact years, but that sounds about right. Because I believe Holloway became a champion in 2017 after beating Aldo. Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah. When was Colby's last win? I don't know. His last win was Jorge Masvidal, I believe, right? Because he fought Jorge Masvidal. He dominated him, in all fairness to Colby. Then I think his next fight after that was Leon, I think. Unless I'm forgetting about a fight. But I think his next fight after that was Leon, which he got dominated in. And then he fought Joaquin Buckley. I think that's his last couple of fights, unless I'm forgetting about something. But I think it's Masvidal. Colby is the new Tony Ferguson. Granted, he hasn't lost 8 in a row. Yeah, but I mean, it's not exactly the same, because Tony Ferguson at his peak was perceived to be amazing, and so was Colby. Colby was a really good fighter. I think people forget that. People forget, man. Colby was a really good fighter at his peak. But it's a little bit different because, yeah, Tony, for one, was on an 8-fight loss streak, which is insane. But for 2 was, he looked, I don't know, maybe you have a point. But the 2-fight loss streak for Colby compared to the 8-fight loss streak for Tony is pretty different. But maybe you have a point, to be honest. Like the streamer was like, if you think Holloway is overrated, he's beating most of the guys he's fought. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's just that sentiment is crazy. And yeah, I mean, it is true. I mean, what else do you want him to do? That's kind of one thing that it's not exactly talking about Max Holloway, but in general, one thing that kind of annoys me a little bit, which sometimes it could be true, but other times it can't. Um, a lot of times when young up and comers or certain fighters that haven't been with the UFC for that long, when they're going up against other fighters that may be a little bit more well established, a lot of times people will point to the guy that's a little bit more well established in the UFC winning because of the fact that he's fought higher level competition or because he's beaten higher level competition. But the thing is, like, for Max, Max has fought some really high level competition, so I don't think that's a great example. But for some other guys, just because they haven't fought higher level competition doesn't mean they're not going to beat other guys that have. Doesn't mean that they're not on that level. It just means that they haven't been in the UFC for that long. Obviously, it could be true in certain circumstances, but in my opinion, it kind of annoys me when people point to that solely, that reason for why a guy's going to beat another guy because he has more experience or he's fought higher level competition. I would like to see different evidence for why you feel like that, but I guess that's kind of a rift that I was thinking of. Dan, that was 3 years ago. His last win was in March 2022. Yeah. A while for Colby. Well, it doesn't help that Colby is not active at all in his prime, but especially now. But also, as I said, he's just not like good. Even if he fought like once or two more times, I just don't see anybody in the rankings of 170 that he could beat. I mean, Colby's number 10 in the rankings. I don't even think he should be there. I think he should probably be unranked at this point. But if Colby fought like Gilbert Burns, who I think is probably washed as well, I even think he loses to Gilbert Burns. Could he beat Jeff Neal? I mean, maybe he can beat Jeff Neal, but I wouldn't even be shocked if Jeff Neal beat him. Could he beat D-Rod? All right, maybe he could beat D-Rod. Could he beat Gabriel Bonfim? Probably not. Could he beat Kevin Holland? Definitely not. Could he beat anybody else ahead of him in the rankings? No. So it's kind of crazy where he's at. What's Colby's on a 4-fight losing streak? He's on a 4-fight losing streak? I thought, let me see Colby's resume. I could be off on it. Colby recent fights. So he lost to Buckley in 2024, so that's one. He lost to Leon in 2023, and then he beat Jorge. Yeah, he's on a 2-fight losing streak, not a 4. But before that, he lost to Kamaru in 2021, and then he beat Tyron Woodley in 2022. Yeah, so his two most recent losses are against Buckley and Leon, but before that, he beat Masvidal. I don't see Colby Covington win again. Yeah, I agree. I don't see him winning again either. Prime Colby beats Leon and Buckley. 100,000% agree with that. 100%. Going into I have a video on my channel. I guess it looked bad in hindsight, but I had a video on my channel talking about how I thought Colby would beat Leon. The reason why I thought that is because Prime Colby was pressure fighter. He'll pressure you and shoot in for a million takedowns. And because Leon just kind of is lethargic out there at times, doesn't have the KO power, and also quits on himself, I just thought that sort of a style would make him quit. Basically, I thought the fight that Bilal Muhammad fought against Leon Edwards would have been the fight that Colby Covington fought against Leon Edwards. And obviously that's not how it played out. Colby fought a very weird sort of fight, considering that Leon doesn't really have KO power, if we're being honest. He was like way too cautious against a fighter like that, and he just fought at Leon's range the entire time. But going into it, I thought Colby would win because of his pressure style and him shooting in for a million takedowns. But of course, he didn't fight like that. But Prime Colby, I do agree, beats Leon and definitely Buckley. I don't know what the public sentiment on Joaquin Buckley is, but I personally don't think Buckley's good. I really don't. I mean, is he good enough to be in the rankings? Of course he is. But is he good enough to be a champion or even a championship contender? I personally don't think so. Crazy Justin Gaethje has been in the UFC since 2017. Yeah, he's been there for a while. Gaethje has never been unranked. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, he's not only has he been in the UFC for a while, he puts on a lot of exciting fights. Essentially, all of his fights are fight of the night, and also he's good. I mean, just very good. How many fighters do you know can actually be ranked in the nation? It's not many. Yeah, definitely not. He's definitely a good fighter. Well, since it's going to 200, you can still turn things around. Yeah, I mean, theoretically. I mean, guys that are in 2-fight losing streak could certainly turn things around in theory, but I just don't think I don't think Colby Covington is. I just think he's washed at this point. When is the next UFC event? It is UFC Perth. It's not this weekend, it's the weekend following. September 27th. And then after that, which the card is solid, I would say. But then after that, we get into October, and we have a lot of good cards in October, which is what I was talking about before. Don't know if if you'd agree, but Volkanovski that showed up against Islam beats Khabib. Oh, that's an interesting one. Um, I don't know if I would go far as to say that, but I do kind of see what you're saying. I guess what you're saying is because Volkanovski was able to stop a lot of the takedowns from Islam, he'll be able to stop the takedowns from Khabib. And if the fight was forced to be kept on the feet, he would have the more success there, as Islam is a better striker than Khabib is. And obviously Volkanovski is a way better striker than Khabib was. So I guess that's kind of what you're saying. I don't know if I'm categorizing what you're saying properly, but I'm assuming that's what you're saying. But I don't know. It's just different. I mean, Khabib is a better wrestler in my opinion than Islam is. Islam is way more technical on the ground once he gets it there, but Khabib, I should say, sorry, is way more aggressive for one, and for two, I think his wrestling is better. And also, if he fails on a takedown, he'll shoot a million more takedowns. So I personally think it's probably a more difficult fight for Volkanovski, if I had to say. But I do kind of see what you're saying. Justin has been with the UFC since July of 2010. That's 8 years. Yeah, yeah. That's Gaethje also aspires to beat Max Holloway for the BMF title. Yeah. It's not gonna happen. I don't think they're ever gonna fight again. I think Gaethje probably. I don't know. I think Gaethje probably is either never gonna fight again or he's gonna fight for the belt. But outside of that, unless something drastic changes, I just don't really see Gaethje fighting these contender fights anymore. He's made it very clear that he wants just to fight for the belt or not fight at all. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, obviously, money can change a lot of things, and time can also change things. If it becomes very obvious that Gaethje needs to fight at least one more time, maybe he'll change his mind. But I don't think we're going to see any sort of. I guess my point is, I don't think we're going to see any sort of like BMF title fight again for Gaethje. I think he's either going to fight for the belt or fight like Paddy or somebody that gets him one fight away from the title, like fighting one more guy and then getting the title shot. Is I guess what I'm trying to say. But yeah, we'll see. Obviously, there's a lot of things that could change in a short period of time. Gaethje should have gone, call it a career. Yeah, I probably would agree. I mean, I don't really think him fighting Ilia Topuria is a good stylistic matchup for him, and also I think he could take a lot of damage, which probably wouldn't be great for Gaethje. So I probably would agree. I mean, listen, if the UFC goes to him and says you're going to get a title shot in your next fight, I mean, he should probably stay, and obviously he will. But assuming that doesn't happen, which I personally don't think is going to happen, then yeah, I mean, I don't hate Gaethje just calling it a career. Maybe he wants to fight one more time, and I don't know, maybe not. Yeah, I wouldn't mind Gaethje calling it a career, to be honest. He's taken a ton of damage over the years, and although I still think he's good, for sure he is, and there's a lot of guys he could beat, I wouldn't hate him calling it a career at this point. Does he beat Paddy, though? I think actually, like, I don't think Paddy's that good personally, but I think Gaethje is the most winnable fight for Paddy out of all the contenders. And when I say all the contenders, I'm talking about Gaethje, I'm talking about Arman, I'm talking about Max, I'm talking about even Dan Hooker. I think Gaethje is the most winnable matchup. And the reason being is, yes, Gaethje has amazing takedown defense, so it will be difficult for Paddy to find that takedown. But in a 5-round fight, eventually, I think he does. And I think Gaethje has proven in a lot of his fights, when he gets taken down, he has no idea what he's doing. And if you're any sort of a high-level grappler, you can submit him. We saw it with Khabib. We saw it with Charles Oliveira. And not saying that Paddy's on the same level as Khabib or Charles Oliveira, but it is relatively close. As I said, I don't think Paddy's that good. But one thing that I will admit, and will have to admit, is Paddy is very, very good with his jiu-jitsu. And if he does find a takedown against Gaethje, I think the fight is all but over. I think he finds a submission. So that's kind of why I think Gaethje is probably the most winnable fight for Paddy out of the top guys. But I don't know. Who do I think is going to win that matchup? I would probably lean with Gaethje, but I think he's also the most winnable matchup for Paddy, as I said. Well, if Gaethje does retire, Fiziev was his last fight. Yep, that would be true. Gaethje could win against Paddy if he managed. Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's a very binary fight. So if he gets taken down, it's over. I mean, he's getting taken down. He's getting submitted. But if he keeps the fight on the feet, it's over for Paddy. Paddy's not really going to have that much success against Gaethje on the feet. Gaethje's just so much better more dangerous, technically better. He's just better. I mean, he's just a better fighter on the feet. So yes, it is a very binary fight. But if it was a 5-round fight, it would be a more difficult fight for Gaethje, just because although Paddy is not an amazing wrestler or anything like that, there does seem to be a lot of scenarios, especially as the fight goes longer, for potential weird scenarios to happen. Maybe Gaethje slips and Paddy takes that opportunity, jumps on top, and now they're on the ground. Or maybe somehow, I don't think it's likely, but maybe somehow Paddy lands a big shot, drops Gaethje, and submits him from there. Or maybe Paddy just finds a takedown in a weird sort of scramble or weird sort of sequence. The longer the fight is, the better chance that Paddy will have to win the fight. If you look back at the last fight versus Jean Silva and Diego Lopez like never shoots for takedowns, and also he's not really a good wrestler, for being honest, but he was able to find a takedown, multiple takedowns in the fight because of weird sort of scenarios where Jean Silva was going for some spinning stuff or he's getting too aggressive. And although, as I said, I don't think Diego Lopez has great wrestling, he was still able to find takedowns. And I think a similar thing could happen. If Gaethje overextends or overthrows on some of his shots, Paddy can take advantage of that, find a takedown, and find the submission. So who knows? John's not happy. Let's go, John. Can Paddy have success on the feet against Justin? No, I don't think so at all, to be honest. Because usually what Paddy does is he utilizes leg kicks relatively effectively, but he utilizes leg kicks on the feet and skirts alongside the outside of the cage. And he does that effectively. But against Gaethje, I don't think that'll be that effective, just because Gaethje is going to start to use his own leg kicks. And if Paddy's not able to have an answer for those leg kicks, I do think that, the leg kick or the calf kicks more particularly are going to start to add up and have an effect. And I think that's going to really limit the movement of Paddy. And as the fight does progress, if Paddy's movement is limited, that's just going to make it easier for Gaethje to, cut off the cage and have Paddy in front of him. And from there, he can land big shots and maybe find the finish, or at the very least, just have success. Paddy's going to be a lot bigger than Gaethje in there. That is true, but I don't think it's going to have that big of an advantage for Paddy. For other guys, I do think it will, but for Paddy specifically, because he is bigger, I don't think that's going to be. I don't think that's going to mean he's going to have success against Gaethje or against anybody else, honestly, at the weight class, because he's going to be bigger and longer than them. I don't think so. The only advantage that Paddy could have by being bigger is maybe he can find takedowns on guys. So I guess from that perspective, it's accurate, but him being bigger has no effect on the feet at all. My opinion. They say Paddy's 5'10", Gaethje's 5'11" for some reason. I believe they would be taller. Yeah, I think so. I think Paddy's probably the biggest fighter in the weight class. He's huge. He's absolutely huge for the weight class. If he ever wanted to, I think he could make 170. So they're saying that Gaethje's taller than him. I don't know if I believe that. But even if he is taller than him, Paddy's bigger than Gaethje. But yeah. Paulo Costa says he wants to fight DDP. That'd be interesting. I know Paulo was supposed to get the fight against RDR, but he didn't want to fight 5 rounds, so they gave it to Brendan Allen. That would have been an interesting fight as well, although I think RDR probably would have beaten Paulo. Paulo versus DDP will be such a fun fight, honestly. Both guys are going to throw like weird sequences, and it'll be fun. It should be good action. I wouldn't mind it, but Paulo does not deserve that sort of a step up in competition. I mean, Paulo's number 13 in the rankings. Dricus is the number 1 contender. So he definitely doesn't deserve that. For Paulo, he probably should get a guy like Kaya Bahalia potentially, or Jared Cannonier, something like that. Jared Cannonier is number 10 in the rankings. Even Roman Dolidze, number 11. Something like that would make more sense. Him fighting DDP right now just wouldn't make any sense at all, in my opinion. Although the fight would be fun. Dan Hooker would make Paddy look like an amateur. I actually agree with that. I think Dan Hooker's a really bad fight stylistically for Paddy, with his front kicks up the middle. Also on the feet, I just don't think it goes all that well for Paddy. So I agree with that. Paddy will be bigger than Holloway in the cage. Yeah, for sure. Paddy will be bigger than anybody at 155, in my opinion. Paddy looked taller in there than Tony Ferguson when they fought. Yeah, he did. How do you think Holloway versus Paddy going? Also, once again, I guess it is binary. If Paddy can find the takedown against a lot of guys, he'll have success. But it's binary because Holloway is so much better on the feet than Paddy is. But if I had to say, I think Holloway probably keeps the fight on the feet, and he probably just boxes Paddy Pimblett. He probably keeps his combinations to 2 to 3 punches, not really extended combinations to avoid takedowns. I think he lands big shots on Paddy. And do I think he finishes him? I don't think he finishes him, but I do think there's a chance he can hurt Paddy in the fight, and I think he just wins. I definitely would favor Max Holloway in that sort of fight, which honestly it could happen. As I said, there's so much time and so much movement for these guys. I know Max said he doesn't want to fight, or not that he doesn't want to, but he can't fight until next year anyway. But we'll see what happens. Oh man, dude, I was playing basketball yesterday, and my fucking back is killing me. I don't know what happened, but yeah. Does Paulo Costa have championship potential? No, honestly, no. I don't think so at this point. I think Paulo can do some things that are very effective. Honestly, his wrestling is pretty good, underrated. He doesn't have great power, but he has good striking. I thought the way he fought against Kopylov was I don't want to say prime Paulo Costa, but that was like the best Paulo Costa you can see. Just a guy who is on the front foot, pressuring his opponent, and kind of utilizing a lot of volume against his opponent. I think that's sort of Paulo Costa. He's a good fighter. I think he could get some more wins. I think he's better than being the number 13th ranked guy, which he is currently. There's definitely guys ahead of him I think he could beat. I think he could beat Roman Dolidze. I think he would beat Roman Dolidze, actually. And maybe even some other guys ahead of him as well. But in terms of championship material, I think there is a pretty big gap between Paulo Costa and Khamzat Chimaev. Although I would love to see that fight. I know they have the beef, and I know they were supposed to fight at a certain point. I would love to see that fight. I just don't think Paulo ever gets to that point where he's fighting for the belt. And even if theoretically it did happen, I think there, as I said, there is a pretty big gap between Khamzat and Paulo. But I don't know. We'll see. Can Paulo make significant improvements? Of course, but I just don't really see it. But we'll see. I'm kind of curious to see who Paulo does fight next. I know he was supposed to fight against Shara, which I always thought was a weird matchup, but I heard from Paulo actually that Shara pulled out. It's kind of unfortunate. Well, on one hand, it's a weird matchup because it seems like the UFC is really trying to push Shara as a potential contender, matching him up against Paulo. But at the same time, it's weird because I don't think Shara is good. I think Paulo beats Shara, and yeah. But for Paulo, I don't think he like really pushes him forward that much. So I don't know. Weird matchup. But I guess Shara's out. Is Israel Adesanya washed? Should have the rematch against I don't think he's washed personally. I know a lot of people do think he is. I don't think he's washed, but what I will say is his reaction time alongside with his chin is significantly worse. But in terms of his like the way he fights, he still has all of his abilities. He still has a really good leg kick. His boxing, or his kickboxing, I guess I should say, is still really good. But his chin and his reaction time is just not that good. A perfect example of that is his fight against Imavov. If you look back at that fight in the first round, not only did Adesanya win that round, but he also did a lot of good work. He was putting a lot of volume out there, and he was making it very difficult for Imavov to have success. But also in that fight, you did see that his chin wasn't the same. I mean, he took a big shot. Of course, it was a big shot. But in the past, Adesanya has had one of the best chins, honestly, at the weight class. He took a left hook from Alex Pereira, a couple of big shots from Alex Pereira, multiple times in the first and the second fight, and he didn't get knocked out, and he wasn't hurt that badly. So his chin definitely got worse, and his reaction time did as well. As on that finishing sequence for Imavov, Izzy just wasn't able to make that adjustment on that finishing sequence, alongside with other shots as well, where he got caught in that fight and even in the Strickland fight. So I would say he's not washed, but his reaction time and chin are worse. Diego Lopez versus featherweight Max Holloway would be a good fight. That would be a good fight, actually, yeah. I think probably Max pulls off a similar sort of performance to what Volkanovski was able to do, where he kind of just out-technicals Diego Lopez, because I don't think Max Holloway would be able to knock out Diego Lopez. Seems like nobody will be able to do, at least to knock out Diego Lopez, at least at this point. Maybe after Diego fights more and if he takes more damage, his chin can be softened a little bit. But at this current point, it seems like he's got the best chin for sure at the weight class, but honestly, maybe in the entire UFC. But in that sort of a fight, I think we could see somewhat of a similar matchup or a performance that Volkanovski was able to put on Diego Lopez. But it'll be interesting. How do you think Diego Lopez versus prime Conor McGregor goes? So, well, actually, that's actually very interesting now that you say that, because my initial thought is definitely prime Conor McGregor is just way more technical than Diego Lopez is. And also, Diego Lopez is not a great wrestler, so I don't even know if he'll be able to take down or even attempt to take down Conor McGregor. So on one hand, that definitely significantly favors prime Conor McGregor. But on the other hand, Diego Lopez's chin is absolutely insane. So if Conor's landing big shots and having a lot of success early, but he's not able to put away Diego Lopez, maybe we could see a Nate Diaz sort of thing that as the fight prolongs, Conor starts to gas out and Diego Lopez starts to come on. But then the other thing that I'm thinking of just in the moment, Diego Lopez doesn't have insanely good cardio or anything like that. So I don't know. I would say prime Conor McGregor would. I don't know if he'll find the finish, but he'll get the win. Maybe he'll find the finish, but at the very least, he'll get the win. Holloway would win. I agree. Against featherweight Lopez. I agree with you. Should there be a rematch between Sean Strickland and Israel Adesanya? I think he might now be Sean. Yeah, I don't mind it. For Adesanya, I mean, right now he's number 5 in the rankings. There's a lot of guys around him that already have fights booked. So, yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. Do a rematch between him and Strickland. Is there going to be a ton of hype and excitement around the fight? Honestly, probably not. But why not? Put the fight back together. A lot of people, including myself, do think that if they did rematch, Izzy would win. So I guess you'll be answering that question. Maybe he wins, maybe not. But yeah, I think that probably makes sense rankings wise and whatever. And also considering a lot of other guys already have fights booked. But if there becomes a clear and obvious contender that comes up, a young contender that comes up, and they want to use Adesanya's name to build that guy off of, I think the UFC will just go in that direction. But theoretically, yeah, I do think him versus Adesanya could make sense. Or, well, honestly, it does make sense. I would love to see Lopez at lightweight. Yeah, I think he will eventually because he is very big for 145, but I don't think he would be that effective there, to be honest. Holloway versus Lopez would be interesting at lightweight. It'll be interesting. I think Holloway would win there as well. I actually think he has a better chance to win at lightweight than he does at featherweight. Prime Conor would knock out Lopez. Yeah, probably. I don't even want to say probably, but good chance he does. But Lopez's chin is just ridiculous. Lopez is too hittable. That I 100% agree with. And yeah, this is my thoughts on Lopez. I think he's very good. I know he has a lot of fans. I was a big fan of Lopez when he was making his come up, and even still at this point. But here's the thing about Lopez. Here's why I don't think he's championship level. The reason why I don't think he's championship level is what he does well out there is he does a really good job at pressuring his opponents, exploding on his opponents, but exploding on his opponents with combinations. And eventually he's able to land one big shot that knocks out his opponents. We've seen that multiple times in a lot of the fights. But when you get to that higher caliber, even if you talk about Jean Silva, honestly, it's an example of that. Or if you talk about his fight against Volkanovski, or just in general, that higher level, you're not going to be able to just out physical your opponents and kind of just do one thing out there and just explode and throw punches together in combination on your opponents and land one big shot and knock them out. So that's why I don't think he's necessarily championship level, although I do think he is very good. But basically what he relies out there is his physicality, his power, his punching power, alongside with his chin. He's so hittable in all of his fights, but because he has such a great chin, he's able to survive and stay there. And because of that, he's able to find victories and also super powerful. So he's able to knock out guys. But as I said, as you move up in the level of competition, it's not as easy just to be powerful and explosive and knock out guys. We saw that in the Volkanovski fight. I think we would see that in some other fights as well. Like higher level fights as well. And him at 155, I think you're kind of taking away some of those advantages that he had at 145 because he does at that point, he wouldn't have his physicality advantage as much as his chin probably would still be really good, but it wouldn't be as good as it would be at 145 because these guys just hit harder for one. And for two, his power wouldn't be as effective at 155 as it would be at 145 because they're bigger, obviously. So that's how I feel about Diego Lopez. Do I think he's good? Of course he's good. He's a legitimate top 5 guy at 145. I just don't think he'll be a champion based upon some of his shortcomings on the feet. Why do you think Izzy seems like your prediction for Carlos Prates applies? Is it Strickland? Carlos Leon. Okay, so Strickland. One guy likes to go back. That's fair. That is fair, actually. I do see that. The reason why I think he would win though, in the rematch is I just feel like Izzy would be a little bit more forward, I guess, because I mean, I guess I don't have that much evidence to support that, but there have been times where Izzy was forward, and with Sean Strickland, he is a really good fighter for sure, but he's really good when he's on the pressure. When we saw a couple of times when he was on the back foot, he doesn't do a good job at. For one, he never counter strikes at all, literally at all. So that would be an advantage for Izzy, and also for two, I think he's just there's more openings. Like the leg kicks will be more effective if he's able to get him on the back foot. And also even some of the shots up top will be more effective. DDP was able to land big shots when Strickland was going back, was moving back. So that's kind of why I think he would win in the rematch. I think he would make those requisite adjustments. I know Izzy typically does fight off the back foot, but in this specific matchup for Strickland, if you can put Strickland on the back foot, which is easier said than done, you can have a lot of success. So that's kind of why I think so. But yes, if Strickland was on the front foot, I guess it would be difficult for Izzy to have any sort of success. And yeah, I do see your comparison, and probably it does make sense between Leon and Carlos. When we were talking about prospects in featherweight the other day, I forgot to mention Myron Santos guy. His record is 16-1, crazy. Yeah, I thought that Santos actually lost his last fight or 2 fights ago, but regardless of that specific fight, I think he's a good fighter. His striking is very good. And I would like to see what improvements he makes as his career does progress and how he looks. So yeah, Myron Santos is definitely a guy that I'm personally looking forward to as well. Definitely a very exciting striker, and we'll see how he progresses. But 16-1 record, yeah, obviously he looks pretty good. I wonder who's going to fight next. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see his recent fights. Myron. So he fought 3 times in the UFC where he TKO'd Ken Olif, whatever. I don't know. He KO'd him, which was a beautiful knockout. He pulled over. He utilized his footwork to move over to the side and land a beautiful counter. So that was nice. Then he won a decision versus Francis Marshall. I thought he lost the fight, but they gave it to him, whatever. And then his most recent performance, he won over Sadiq Youssef in a really good performance. So after being Sadiq Youssef, I wouldn't mind if they gave Santos a ranked fight at to be honest. Actually, Santos's fight was at lightweight when he fought Youssef. I don't know if he's moving up to lightweight or maybe it was a catch weight at lightweight. I don't know. I don't remember it, to be honest. I think maybe Santos missed weight for that fight. I think that's what happened, and they fought at lightweight, yeah. But I wouldn't mind if his next fight is for against a ranked guy. He's looked pretty good, especially in the Santos fight. Lopez win over Sabatini. It aged amazingly, actually. I was actually there for that fight, Lopez or Sabatini, and I couldn't believe the odds. Lopez was like a -120 favorite or something like. I couldn't believe the odds. I didn't see a world where Sabatini beats Lopez just because Lopez has great jiu-jitsu, and on the feet, I just didn't think Sabatini had much for him, which turned out to be the case. But yeah, after the way he just ran through him and dominated him, and Sabatini ever since then has honestly put on some pretty good wins and had some pretty good victories. I agree with you. His win over Sabatini has aged very, very well, and yeah, Sabatini's good. He definitely has gotten a lot better as well. His jiu-jitsu is elite. Lopez versus Sabatini reminds me of Topuria versus Hall, a good BJJ guy, fed to a strong prospect. That's fair. That is fair as well, actually. Definitely very similar, actually, in terms of that perspective. I love that clip that was going around of Topuria knocks out Jiu-Jitsu nerd. That's so funny. But Ryan Hall's sort of style, although it is kind of funky and is kind of weird, is at the same time effective against a lot of different fighters. So yeah, definitely he had a place in the UFC, and that's honestly a pretty good comparison between those two guys, or those two fights, I should say. Yeah. but yeah, fellas, there's definitely good things coming up in the UFC. There is good prospects. I know, obviously, for the most part on these live streams, we do talk about ranked fighters, just because you know what. I just saw something on Twitter that said John Jones is fighting Chris Barnett next. That'd be amazing. But anyways, in terms of unranked fighters, there's definitely a lot of guys in a lot of these weight classes, in particular at 125, but also other weight classes that are really good and that are going to start to come on the radar for a lot of casuals as well as even hardcores. So I'm excited to see what some of these up and coming prospects can do, and that's honestly a big part of the reason for why I'm such a big fan of the Contender Series. Even though some of the Contender Series cards may suck, which yesterday I didn't think it was amazing. At the same time, you could get really good prospects coming out of that, and guys that could turn into champions, which has happened a couple of times. Lopez versus a more Primer Oliveira is a dream matchup. That would be interesting. I honestly, that would actually be a very interesting fight. I know everybody was making the comparison between Lopez and Oliveira when Lopez was making his come up. Obviously, they don't fight the same at all, but it would be interesting. The jiu-jitsu from both guys are really good. The striking, I would say Oliveira definitely has better striking, but Lopez does have a really good chin. I don't know. I think I would favor Oliveira in that sort of a fight because of the front kick. The front kick up the middle, I think, would be a very big weapon for him, as Lopez has shown in the past that he can gas out. And I think that's sort of a style from Oliveira, maybe making it a very high-paced fight, basically similar to how he fought Dustin Poirier, just throwing a lot of different combinations out at there at Lopez, and especially that front kick to the body. I think that could really start to gas out Diego Lopez. And as the fight progresses, especially if it's a 5-rounder, and if Lopez starts to gas out, I think from that point, Oliveira could start to pull away and maybe have more success. But that is an interesting matchup. And obviously, as I said, there were a lot of comparisons between Oliveira and Lopez when Lopez was initially making his come up. But yeah, that'll be interesting. I'm kind of interested to see. I think there's only 2 matchups you can do next for Lopez. Either you do Lopez versus Movsar and you make that a number 1 contender fight, or maybe it's an interim title fight if Volkanovski retires, or you do Lopez versus Yair and just put that fight back together. Not back together, but put that fight together. I've said it for a long time. I thought it should have been the fight instead of Jean Silva versus Diego Lopez. I thought it should have been Diego Lopez versus Yair. And I get the criticism. Some people will say, oh, yeah, but it's just a fight that would significantly favor the style of Diego Lopez, which I agree. Lopez almost definitely beats Yair Rodriguez. Almost definitely. But still, they have their beef, and they both are coming off wins, and I think it makes sense. But I don't know. We'll see what the UFC decides to do. But any other matchup for Lopez outside of Movsar or a Yair makes no sense, in my opinion. It's got to be one of those 2 guys. What do you think is the most overrated movies are? That's a good question. Honestly, my thing about movies is really funny. So I don't watch that many movies, but I love movies. It sounds like kind of funny. I just don't sit down and watch that many movies, but in the few occasions where I do, like, I enjoy watching, but it kind of sounds ridiculous. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know an answer to that. I guess I'm not the perfect guy to ask for that one. Lopez says after the Volk fight that he started training in the octagon. Lopez said after the octagon, something he never did before. He never trained in the octagon. I think it showed in Warriors. That's fair. Yeah, that's interesting that he never trained in the octagon prior to the Volkanovski fight. But yeah, I do think it is a benefit, definitely, to train in the octagon. I mean, you have octagon awareness, as you said. And yeah, that's very interesting that he never trained the octagon. Yeah, I don't know. Jean's versus Yair, definitely Jean Silva. I'm biased, I guess, but definitely Jean Silva. I think he's physical enough to take the shots of Yair. But more importantly, I think what Jean would do out there is just pressure. The way that he fought Diego Lopez, although like he didn't respect Diego at all and it turned out to backfire, I think that's how he would, and honestly, how he should fight against Yair. Just not respecting Yair at all, just pressuring forward and landing big shots. Yair does do well when he's able to have space and he's able to land a bunch of leg kicks or high kicks or any sort of unique sort of kick. But if you're able to pressure Yair, you can really have a lot of success against him. Even Brian Ortega, of all people, had success on the feet against Yair Rodriguez, where he was able to land a big shot when he was pressuring him. So definitely Jean Silva will be able to. And the chin of Yair Rodriguez is not amazing. I mean, he was finished by Volkanovski, who doesn't have great power. I get it. It was over the course of a fight, but still, it's not a great look. So I think Jean Silva would win that fight. And I actually be very confident that he would, stylistically, but also in terms of the power and physicality aspect of it as well. Hot take, I think Interstellar is very overrated. Crazy enough, I haven't seen it. I was actually going to watch it not too long ago, but crazy enough, I haven't seen it. But I've heard good things, but I guess it could be overrated. I don't know. Also, crazy thing as well, this is going to sound ridiculous. I've never seen Inglourious Bastards, which I've been wanting to watch lately. That I actually think I'm going to watch soon, but it's insane that I haven't seen it. I got to watch more movies, bro. Lopez versus Hooker at lightweight. Who takes it? I don't know. That's a good question, actually. I'll say Hooker. I'll say Hooker, based on the front kicks and his ability to take shots. I'll say Hooker. But that's an interesting one. It's a close fight. Arnold Allen shows masterfully how to deal with heavy kicker against Giga. Yeah, you're right, actually. That's actually a great point, because there were some rumors of Arnold Allen fighting Yair. I mean, there's been nothing that came out of that since those rumors, so I'm assuming that's not going to happen anymore. But theoretically, if Arnold Allen's next fight was against Yair, that's a good point. Like he probably would do a really good job against a kicker in Yair. But as I said, I want to see Yair versus Diego. Yair is gonna get a genius with that kick that he wants to see coming. Yeah, I don't think so, but it's possible. But the thing about, even if he does, well, I don't want to say I don't think so. I mean, I would, well, actually, yeah, I don't think so. But I'm not. I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think it's impossible. Of course, you can land it, and we saw it in the Diego Lopez fight. Jean Silva just didn't respect at all Diego Lopez. He was just pressing forward, and he got caught. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, even if Yair does land a head kick, if he lands clean, I guess it can knock out anybody. But Jean Silva has shown an amazing chin, and I know he got finished by Diego Lopez, but Diego Lopez is way more powerful than Yair is, for one, and for two, Jean was coming into a very powerful puncher, into like a perfect shot, a spinning elbow that Jean was coming into, and he didn't even get like completely knocked out from that. So I don't know. I heavily favor Jean in that sort of fight. Lopez versus Pico. Who takes the juice? Lopez. Lopez does. That sort of a fight is a nightmare fight for Pico, to be honest. Because for Pico, he's good. I think he can have a lot of success against Lopez with his boxing, with his body shots. The thing with Pico, though, is he kind of just eventually runs into a big shot. And I think eventually he'll run into a big shot from Lopez. And because of Lopez's power, he'll probably knock Pico out. So I think Lopez wins that fight. But not to say that I don't think Pico yeah. Did I say Lopez? Yes. I think Lopez wins that fight. But not to say Pico has wouldn't have success in it, because I think he does. I think he would. How do you see Lopez Pico going? What I just said. Francis versus Holloway, GCMA. I'd have to pick Max because of the front kick. Yeah, I think I would probably have to pick Francis. I mean, Max, because of the front kick. That's a good point. I guess it's kind of funny. I do have a similar take on a lot of these fights for Lopez specifically, but the reason I keep saying that is because Lopez has shown to have a bad, not amazing cardio. So because of that fact, I think the front kick would be very effective against that sort of a fighter. Not against everybody, but yeah, I guess for some of the examples that some of you guys asked in chat, the front kick was a huge part of my analysis. Yeah. But yeah, what are some fights coming up or not coming up that you hope to see that coming up, or dream fights that you have? What do you boys want to see? What kind of fights? Pico can rip those body shots, and Lopez, he can. And as I said, I think he would if they fought, and I think he would have success. It's just the only thing is, and yes, I guess those body shots could potentially play a big factor if the fight does go later, especially considering the gas tank questions about Lopez. But as I said, even if Pico does have success, which he probably will, I just think he'll eventually run into some sort of a shot, whether it's an uppercut from Lopez or whether it's a spinning elbow from Lopez or whatever. I just think Pico kind of finds a way to run into shots. If he makes adjustments and he's a little bit more cautious, yeah, he could definitely beat Lopez. But based on what we've seen thus far, I just think he runs into some sort of a shot from a very powerful puncher. And even if he lands big shots up top, as I said multiple times, Lopez has shown to have an amazing chin. So I think he'll be able to eat some shots even from Pico. I don't think Lopez will take those body shots from Pico. Yeah, maybe not. But it depends, I guess. I don't think he'll take body shots over the course of a full five rounder. But if Pico runs into a big shot early, then I guess it won't matter. I just want October to come already. Yeah, me too. Yeah, September's not like. No, I don't think September's terrible. I mean, I thought the France card was good. And even I think the card last weekend was pretty good considering how the main event looked, and even some of the other fights on the main card as well. But it sucks that we have no pay-per-views this month, and on top of that, it kind of sucks also that we don't have any fights this weekend. So yeah, October is definitely a lot better than September, but yeah. Sorry, I missed this one. Pico with a bit more of an Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Pico is just he's just full pressure all the time. I've said this multiple times. I think Pico could be a champion with some adjustments, and that's exactly what the adjustment would be. Just be a little bit more cautious. Be all the way in or all the way out. Don't, or well, not even necessarily that, but I guess just don't at all times be in the fire. Yes, that sort of style, he can have success. He can land big shots against certain fighters, of course, but also it's putting a guy who doesn't have a good chin in danger of getting caught. And we've seen that so many times in the UFC now in his one fight versus Leroy Murphy, as well as his fights in Bellator/PFL. So that's the problem with Aaron Pico. But in terms of his actual skills, they're tremendous. His boxing is really good. The way he rips a body shot is tremendous, and his boxing in general is really good. He's very powerful on the feet, and even his wrestling is very good. So the individual skills that he has is championship caliber. The problem with him is he just always throws himself into the fire, and because he doesn't have a good chin, it's too dangerous of a game for him to fight at. Pico can sting Lopez standing. Don't forget upside on hands too. Yeah, he definitely could sting him for sure. I mean, Jean Silva, I guess, stung Lopez to an extent. It just, until I see it, I kind of had a similar thought process to Francis Ngannou. Until I see them getting knocked out or until I see them getting hurt badly, it's just hard for me to picture it in my mind because I just saw Diego Lopez take huge bombs from a very powerful puncher in Jean Silva alongside with other guys as well, and he's just not really that affected. Yeah, he stumbled a little bit against Jean, but he wasn't really affected that badly. So until I see him get knocked out or until I see him get hurt badly, it's just hard for me to picture. And yes, Pico has great power, but does he have more power than Jean Silva? Maybe he does, but I don't know. It's probably close. Did you watch Joker in 2019? I thought the movie was very overrated too. That's funny. So I haven't seen the movie, like the full movie itself, but I have seen a lot of clips of it. I thought the clips were fine, but it is funny because one of my friends that watched that movie, he has the same opinion. He thinks it's very, very overrated. He wasn't happy about the whole storyline of the Joker going into it, but yeah, I haven't seen the whole thing, but I have seen a lot of clips of it. That's kind of funny that you say that. But like Lopez, Pico is powerful a puncher too. Like Lopez, Pico is a powerful puncher too. Well, yeah, I agree. Pico is definitely a powerful puncher. Pico with an iron chin, honestly, he's a champ with an iron chin, or a iron chin, as the Weasel says. Pico is definitely a champion at 145. I think his individual skills are tremendous. His boxing, his wrestling, his power. Yeah, with a good chin, forget it. Pico used to fight at lightweight. Yeah. Probably not amazing idea, just because he already doesn't have a great chin, but moving up, and unless he cuts a lot of weight, which I don't think he does, but moving up and fighting guys that hit even harder than they do at 145 is probably not a great idea for a guy who's constantly in the fire and doesn't have a great chin. But yeah, that's so true though. Pico with a great chin, dude. I don't know who beats that guy. Like, it's actually very difficult to see who would beat that sort of a fighter. Pico is so similar to Chandler, a wrestler who loves to strike. That's true. The difference is though, well, in that sort of a, what you're saying there is accurate. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, the difference is Michael Chandler's not really a technical striker at all. He's just a guy that presses forward, a marauder. He's a marauder. He's a marauder that just presses forward and just throws big shots and finds finishes sometimes. But with Pico, yes, he does do a similar thing, but he is actually very technical on the feet. So that's the difference between the two. I actually saw, after Pico got knocked out by Lerone Murphy, I actually saw a lot of people talking about, oh, Aaron Pico's just Michael Chandler. I don't agree with that at all. I think it's like a very low IQ take, to be honest. I think for Pico, it's clear that he could be good. Yes, he does have the issue that he just runs into shots and he kind of finds his way. He finds a way to get knocked out. But it's very different in the sense that for Michael Chandler, like, it's very clear that he's just not on that level of being a championship contender or fighting even some of these higher level competition. Yeah, he had success against guys for sure, but his game plan was thrown out the window. But for Aaron Pico, he has shown ability to be very technical on the feet, and on top of that, he has good wrestling and he's very powerful. So I think it's different. I don't think losing to Lerone Murphy is like, oh, he's a fraud or whatever. But we'll see. Pico is a smarter version of Chandler. That's pretty funny. Yeah, I completely agree. He is a smarter version of him. And I mean, not even saying, it's kind of funny to say, because Pico honestly doesn't have the smartest game plan out there, just kind of, throwing himself into the fire, but he is a smarter version of Chandler. I do agree with that. Pico versus Holloway would be good at lightweight. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Probably Pico gets knocked out, but it would be interesting. Pico's fights are always going to be fun, and they're always going to be interesting for as long as they last, but against guys with like any sort of power, I just feel like he eventually runs into a big shot and gets knocked out. It's crazy how someone's career can be altered by their ability to take damage. Yeah, it's true. Guys like Yuri doesn't get you. It is so true. Like a guy like Aaron Pico could be on the same level as some of those guys if he had a great chin. I mean, Yuri Prochazka in a lot of his fights, to be honest, even in his Dominick Reyes fights. Like in his Dominick Reyes fight, he took big shots. If he didn't have a good chin, he would have got knocked out in that sort of a fight. Even if you look at his fight versus what the fuck's his name? Even if you look at his fight, he's coming up soon. Let me find his name. Even if you look at his fight versus Alexander Rakic. Rakic was doing a lot of damage in that first round to Yuri, and if Yuri doesn't have a great chin, he gets knocked out. I know he got knocked out by Alex Pereira because Pereira kind of has different level of power. But yeah, Yuri's a great example of a guy that, because he has a great chin, he was able to have success. Even in the Glover Teixeira fight, if you want to move back to that one, that jab right hand that Glover landed knocks out most guys. I know it hurt Yuri pretty badly, and I know Glover made an absolutely catastrophic mistake going for guillotine after hurting him like that. But still, that sort of a shot knocks out most guys. Dustin also is another good example of that, who had a great chin and it was able to have success because of it. Even Conor McGregor in the second fight landed some good shots on Dustin. Gaethje obviously is notoriously the way Gaethje fights, he would never be good if he didn't have a good chin, like an insanely good chin. The amount of damage that guy takes is insane. The same could be said about Yuri and maybe even a little bit less so Dustin, but Gaethje specifically, he takes so much damage. If he didn't have a good chin, like, forget it. He would not be good. He would definitely not be good at all. So for Gaethje, more for the other guys, of course, as well. But for Gaethje, most importantly, he's as good as he is because of his chin. Also, he's good, but his chin plays a huge factor in it. Pico was beating up Murphy before the knockout. Yeah, I agree. That's why I think Pico's good. I think he's good. I think he has a chance to be a champion even after that loss, because he was beating him up before. His body shots were really nice. His pressure was nice. He shot him for a couple takedowns, was able to find takedowns on Lerone Murphy. He was able to land big shots up top. Even Murphy himself has said that was his toughest fight that he was in. But you kind of saw the lore of Aaron Pico in that fight. He has a lot of success. He looks really good, but then he runs into a shot and gets knocked out. So you kind of saw the lore of Aaron Pico. Can Holloway handle the body shots from Pico? It would be difficult for him to do so. His body shots are nasty, but I think Max probably would win that though. I don't think Pico has necessarily had a bad chin before he wasn't knocked out in 2017. Plus, yeah, I mean, so specifically that spinning elbow from Lerone Murphy, I agree with you. That probably knocks out anybody, or most guys, I should say. But I don't think Pico has a good chin personally. I mean, he is throwing himself into the fire, and I guess you're kind of putting yourself into a situation where if most guys were in that sort of situation, they would get knocked out, I guess, with some of the shots that he's taken. But I don't know. I just don't go out there and I'm like, oh yeah, Aaron Pico's chin is not that bad. I think he has a bad chin, to be honest. Gaethje's the definition of eating to. Yeah, that is so true. And he's had a lot of success. He made a career out of that, as you said. So yeah, Gaethje's chin is so important. I actually think Lopez's chin is a big part of his game as well. He's very hittable. Having a good chin is such an advantage. I mean, obviously, but especially for some of these guys, the success they've been able to have is in part because of their really good chin. Holloway has a good chin. Yeah, he's an all-time chin. He's an amazing chin. You can tell that Murphy didn't like the body shots from Pico. Yeah, for sure. For sure he didn't. He said it himself even after the fight. I don't see Pico getting knocked out by right hand or something. Oh, from Lerone Murphy, you're saying? Well, Lerone is, yeah. Lerone is not that dangerous. So, yeah, you're probably right, to be honest. But I mean, a perfect shot, obviously Lerone is southpaw. So a perfect shot, if Pico's running into a big left hand, he can get knocked out. But you're probably right. Like, most likely, if it weren't for that spinning elbow, Lerone or Aaron Pico would be able to take some of the shots. Usman's chin too. Usman's chin is absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. I know he got knocked out with the head kick, but anybody gets knocked out by that head kick. And even after that head kick, he took some big shots from Leon Edwards. That big knee in the rematch between him and Leon right after the head kick as well. And his chin looked fine. So Usman's chin is an all-timer. Tony Ferguson has a good chin as well. Tony's chin is amazing as well. The amount of damage that he took against Gaethje was insane, but the fact that his chin held up in that sort of a fight kind of shows you how good his chin is. And even though he got knocked out by Michael Chandler, kind of a similar situation. Anybody gets knocked out. That's sort of a shot for Michael Chandler. And also, after he got knocked out from Chandler, his chin didn't look bad, honestly. He just looked like he was washed. But I don't think his chin looked bad after that knockout from Chandler. So Tony's chin is obviously all time. If Murphy beats Volkanovski, I'm kidding myself. Yeah, I'm not that big of a fan of Murphy either. I kind of think he's similar to Leon Edwards a little bit, maybe a little more exciting. But how I want Volkanovski's career to go from here, if it were up to me, is I want him to beat Lerone Murphy and then I want him to retire. Could he beat Movsar Evloev if that were to be the next fight? Sure. I think he could. I actually don't think it's a bad stylistic matchup for Volkanovski. But, if he beats Lerone Murphy, at that point, it's like, to be honest, how much more does he have to prove? And even if he does beat Movsar, I guess that is another name to be on his resume. But I don't know. I mean, I think he's proven a lot throughout his career. So I would like to see him beat Lerone Murphy and then retire from there. But, of course, it's up to Volk. Dubronk's had a good chin. He's had an interesting chin. He kind of had – not the same. It's not as good, but he has a similar chin in a way to Colby Covington. Because for Colby Covington, I would say he has a great chin, but he would get dropped a lot. And with Charles Oliveira, it's a very similar thing. He would get dropped a lot. So I'd say Colby's chin is probably better than Charles's. But yeah, I would say he has a good chin. I would agree with that, but it's different from some other guys. Obviously, some guys take big shots and don't get dropped, which is pretty crazy. But before the Ilia Topuria knockout, we've never seen Charles knocked out like that. So his chin is good. Facts. Volk said he's got a 2 or 3 left. Okay. So maybe he will fight a little bit longer. But yeah, as I said, if it were up to me, just fight Lerone, win, and then retire. Reason being is, yeah, he could be Movsar for sure, but against some of these other guys, I know Jean Silva lost, I get it, but against Jean Silva, I think that's a really bad stylistic matchup for Volkanovski. I really do. So I think he would actually lose to him. Against Diego Lopez in a rematch, I think Volk probably beats Diego again, but it's a dangerous sort of fight. And some of these other guys, some of these other young up-and-comers, even like Yusuf Zalal, there's some like dangerous guys that are coming up that I think are probably not great stylistic matchups for Volkanovski. And he is getting older, and his skill is only going to get worse. So as time progresses, so I would like to see him retire. I love Volkanovski. I'm not saying I don't want to watch Volkanovski fights anymore, which of course I do. But for his sake, I would like to see him retire soon. I believe Volk beats Murphy. I think so as well. I think it's a good stylistic matchup for him. Basically, a good stylistic matchup for Volkanovski is a guy that's not super powerful. That's a good stylistic matchup for him. Volkanovski not only has great takedown defense, great ability to get back up if he does get taken down, but he's also on the feet super technical. And Lerone Murphy's kind of one of those guys that, yeah, he's super technical on the feet for sure. And that's how he has his success against a lot of guys. But I don't think there's many, if any, guys that are more technical than Volkanovski, not only in his weight class, in the entire UFC. So if you're trying to out-technical Volkanovski, you're not going to win that sort of a fight. So that's why I think he would beat Lerone Murphy, he would beat Movsar, or any other fighter that's like that, where they're not super physical. But we'll see how it goes. And many people make it like Holloway got knocked out cold by Topuria. I didn't get knocked out. He was still awake. Yeah, he was still awake, but yeah, well, I don't disagree with you. Max's chin was so great. I think the fact that Topuria was able to knock him out just shows how good Topuria's power is as compared to Max Holloway's chin not being good. Everybody knows Max Holloway's chin's amazing. The fact that Topuria was able to knock him out, all right, he didn't go out cold, but it was a clear TKO. Just shows that, you know, how good his power is. I guess that's kind of the point, at least for me. If other people are saying something else, I don't agree, but that's my point. Same with Bronx. He didn't get knocked out cold. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Bronx did get knocked out cold by Topuria. That's what I was saying. That was the first time we saw Charles get knocked out like that against Topuria. He was out cold. Why did Holloway struggle with shorter fighters? I don't know actually. But I thought, I mean, obviously Topuria is shorter than him. I thought he actually looked pretty good against Topuria. I know he got finished, but I thought he looked pretty good. Who's the best gatekeeper? I think it's Jan. Jan needs a shout at. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Jan's story is so unfortunate, to be honest, though. He beat Carlos Ulberg, and he should be fighting Dominick Reyes for the #1 contender fight at this point. It sucks. But Jan's a good one. Let's look through some of these weight classes to see some gatekeepers. I know historically, a lot of people like to say that what's his face? Jeff Neal, not Jeff Neal. Oh, well, maybe Jeff Neal could be a gatekeeper to an extent, but Neil Magny is a gatekeeper. I don't think Neil Magny's that good, but maybe you can say him. Maybe. Who else? Honestly, you could probably even say Jeff Neal to an extent. Moicano could be one. And yeah, Jan's probably a good one too. But yeah, sucks for Jan. I mean, he's like 40, however old he is. He's probably never getting a title shot again. He definitely beat Ulberg. You know, it kind of just shows you. I have a video coming out about this as well. I have a lot of videos coming out. I've been doing a lot of work on putting videos together for you guys. But basically, one of the videos that I made, I was talking about, does the UFC have a judging problem? And essentially, I was making the case that they do because, well, first of all, there's a lot of fights that are poorly judged. But on top of that, because there's a lot of fights that are poorly judged, there's significant changes. Ciryl Gane definitely lost to Volkov. And because he got the victory on the judges' scorecards, now he's getting the title shot over Volkov, which is unfair to Volkov. So that had a significant impact because the judges were wrong on that night. Also for Jan Blachowicz, he definitely beat Carlos Ulberg. So the fact that they gave it to Carlos Ulberg, now Carlos Ulberg is in a #1 contender fight, and Jan Blachowicz is probably never going to get a title shot for the rest of his career. So these things have significant circumstances or consequences, which is kind of frustrating. So the UFC does need to tidy up on their judges. Are they going to do so? Probably not. I mean, it's been this way for years. They've had bad judges for years, but it's unfortunate. It is unfortunate. Jones struggles with taller fighters. He does, yeah, because really what he does well is he does a really good job at utilizing his length in order to eye poke his opponents, to be honest, but also on top of that, just to feel out his opponent's range and land big shots. So, yeah, I agree. He does. He came back from a shoulder injury, too. Yeah, he did. I wouldn't say that Jan looked amazing in that fight, or I walked away thinking oh, he's championship caliber, but I thought he definitely won the fight. So it's unfortunate that they didn't give him the win. They should leave more room for appeals on bad decisions. I actually agree with that. I actually do agree with that. It just, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's just very frustrating to me that guy. Basically, my frustration with it is well, one, it's just bad, but it's just weird. Like a guy like me, I'm not, I've no experience or training or anything in judging, or anybody else for that matter that doesn't have any sort of training or experience in judging. Just watching MMA fights in general, how can we all have a essentially consensus thought that a certain guy won a fight, but these judges just get it so wrong? If a fight's close, okay, fine. If a fight's close and one judge has it one way, the other judge has it the other way, all right, fine, I get it. But when a fight is very obvious and they give it to the wrong fighter, it's just I don't get it. I don't get how you could be watching fights for that long. I don't get how you can be a judge getting paid for this for that long and you could just have such bad decisions. And with the judges, we constantly see the same guys having really bad decisions. So it's just unfortunate. It's weird that that it happens. I know a lot of people bring it up like, oh, is this thing rigged? Is it rigged because the decisions are so bad? I personally don't think it's rigged, but I get the argument because some of these scorecards are just so bad. But whatever. What's going on, brother? Welcome to the stream. Can we see Reyes? Yeah. Hopefully, I'm really hoping Dom Reyes pulls off the victory. I put out a video today talking about why I thought Dominick Reyes is going to win the fight. So if you guys are interested, be sure to check that out. Give myself a quick shout out. Here you go. This video right here, if you guys are interested. But yeah, I think he's going to win. But of course, who knows? His chin's not that great, so you never know. But we'll see. Welcome to the stream, though. How do you fix it? More judges. I heard judges. Let's see. Yeah, video finish. That's I don't know if that's true, but if that is true, that is very silly. I think the fix though to it's not going to be perfect. However, you try to do it. If you're always going to have bad decisions, which is normal. I mean, it's human error. You're always going to have bad decisions at times. But I think something the UFC could probably do is, as I said, like Sal Diamato, like there's guys that consistently have bad scorecards. Maybe they shouldn't be judges anymore if they consistently have bad scorecards. For one, for two, maybe bring in some new new people, new judges, potential judges that are younger, that maybe have a different thought process. A lot of these judges, these MMA judges, are coming over from boxing, which is completely different sport. I know the scoring system is the same, but the sport itself is completely different. So maybe have guys that are MMA fans come up and judge certain fights. Just add new people to the whole mix and fire guys that are not good judges. I think that's probably the answer. But even like that sort of scenario that I laid out, even that sort of scenario, like you're not going to eliminate bad scorecards. It's just human error. It's going to happen. But I think that would be the best way to limit it. And also, if they're not able to see the video footage, I think that's stupid. You definitely should be able to see that. That's also another easy change if that is true. It should be ridiculous. We'll call him DJ. Let's go. Yeah, but I haven't seen anybody at all that is not rooting for Dominick Reyes. So I think we're all in unison here. We're all rooting for Dominick Reyes. I actually think he could win it. I think stylistically it's a pretty good fight for him. And I hope he does win. But yeah, I think all the boys are rooting for Dominick Reyes to get a victory here. And we'll see. We'll see. Man. But I'm excited. Bro's got the Mexicans and Americans rooting for him. Yeah, for sure. Honestly, I think there's an argument to be made that like everybody around the world is rooting for him. His story is just so great. And also considering, like, everybody loves a comeback story. So considering where he was not too long ago and everybody thought he should retire, to this point where he's on a 3-fight win streak and could potentially get a title shot with one more win, I think almost everybody's rooting for him. So we'll see. And it's all about spite for John Jones. Yeah, that's also a big part of it for a lot of guys, a lot of fans. For sure. What do we got here, folks? 1 second, boys. My bad. I just got to do something quickly. One second. All right, we're good. Um, but yeah, I think essentially everybody's rooting for Dominick Reyes at this point, and hopefully he is able to find the victory. I mean, I don't know, maybe some fans are rooting for Carlos Holberg in Australia or New Zealand, but I think for the most part, most fans are rooting for Dom. So hopefully he can get it done. And yeah, he's 2 fights away. He's 2 fights away from being a champion. It's crazy. Really is crazy to think about. But we'll see. But anyways, fellas, thanks so much for everybody joining the stream. Thanks so much for the comments and questions and everything in chat. I really do appreciate it. It just makes the stream even more fun. And I really am starting to see a little bit of growth here. We are starting to see a lot more people coming back to streams and a lot of new people joining the stream. So I really do appreciate it. Obviously, I'm just trying to just grow the channel in any way I can. So I appreciate all you boys for joining the stream and leaving comments as well. But yeah, we've been streaming around like 2 hours at this point. If you guys have any additional questions, be sure to let me know in chat. But if not, I think I may hop off at this point. I will be, of course, streaming again tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So feel free to join back tomorrow if you guys are interested. But yeah, until tomorrow, I'll see you boys then. And also check out the Dominick Reyes video if you guys haven't seen it yet. But yeah, peace out, fellas.